So one of the things that I introduced my best friend Bree and her daughter and her mom to are kolaches. So I made some sausage kolaches recently and then talked to my husband and son and decided we should do a sweet version too because they have those down here in Texas. But we don't like fruit fillings. So I'm going to make a pecan pie filling kolache. So I'm going to start with a cup of milk in my saucepan, a cup of sour cream, and a cup of butter. I'm going to turn this on medium-low heat and just keep it, I only want it to just heat up and melt the butter. I do not want to boil the milk. I don't want to curdle the milk. We need it to be about 115 degrees, so just warm. This will take probably 5 or 6 minutes. So our butter, milk, sour cream mixture is warm, exactly as we want it. So now we're going to turn that off. I'm going to pour it into my mixing bowl. I'm going to add to it 2/3 cup of sugar. And then I'm going to sprinkle over the top 5 teaspoons of yeast. And then we're going to let this bloom for about 5-10 minutes and then we'll be back. So our yeast is mostly bloomed. Now we are going to add, I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour. You need a total of 6.5 cups, but we're going to start with 2. Mix that in, along with 2 teaspoons of salt and a teaspoon of nutmeg. Stir all that together. And I'm going to add 4 eggs that are lightly scrambled, or lightly beaten, not scrambled. And they are room temperature. I'll just mix them together real quick. Stir those in. And then we'll move to the mixer. And all I'm going to do with the mixer is add the last 4.5 cups of flour with the dough hook. Just got my dough hook. I'm going to go with 1 cup at a time, or about a cup at a time. And then just start mixing it in. I'm going to do it slow at first so we don't have an explosion of flour, and then we'll ramp it up so that we get it fully incorporated. And then I'll be at the table kneading it for about 5 minutes. And that last little bit. It's going to take about 2 or 3 minutes and then we'll be ready. our dough is ready. So I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of flour. I'm going to pour the dough out and I'm going to knead it for about 5 minutes. And this is the part of bread making that makes me want to get a bread maker. This is the only reason I would get it. I love mixing bread. I just don't like the kneading part of it. My husband keeps telling me it's my workout. It's just not fun for me. Clearly we need more flour. Okay, so the dough is super sticky, which means I need a whole lot more flour. We need a lot more flour. I think I've added almost 2 cups now. So one of the things about this recipe is that you have to make the dough ahead of time because it needs to sit in the refrigerator overnight. So we're gonna make both the dough and the filling tonight, and then tomorrow morning we will roll out and bake kolaches. So this is about the texture that I'm used to it being when it comes out of the mixer. So I'm going to add a little bit more flour. Trying to get to the point where my fingers don't get stuck in the dough and that it becomes super elastic, meaning I punch my finger in it and it pops right back up. All right. Just a little more over here. And then we're going to find a bowl for it and stick it in there overnight. So I have about a tablespoon of vegetable oil in the bottom of my bowl. I'm going to take my dough, pop it inside, roll it around to make sure it gets grease on all sides, otherwise it's going to dry out. I'm going to cover it with my lid and put it in the refrigerator. It needs to refrigerate for at least 8 hours, a maximum of 12. So we will be back in the morning to make our kolaches. Okay, so now we're going to make the pecan pie filling. Here's a fun fact. This recipe calls for 1 1/3 cups of either corn syrup or maple syrup. And I don't have 1 1/3 cups of either, but I do have 2/3 cup of each. So that's what I'm going to do today. So I have 2/3 cup of corn syrup. And 2/3 of a cup of maple syrup. To that, I'm going to add 2/3 cup of dark brown sugar, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, a 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. We're going to whisk all of that together. And then I'm going to whisk in 4 large eggs that are at room temperature and lightly whisked together. And you want to get the eggs fully incorporated so that you don't have a point where there's like a chunk of scrambled eggs inside, because we're going to turn the heat on this in just a moment. All right, so now we're going to turn on the heat at medium-low, because we don't really want, we're not trying to scramble the eggs, we're just trying to heat it up lightly. And I'm going to add 6 tablespoons of butter. And we are going to sit here and stir until the butter melts and bubbles just start to form on the outer edges. This could take about 5 minutes or so. So the butter is all melted. Now we are just going to keep stirring it a little and watching it heat up. We're just waiting for it to bubble up on the outside. Not all the way inside. We don't need a rolling boil. We just need the bubbles to start pulling up, and then we'll add our pecans. So I took 2 2/3 cups of pecans, really almost 3 cups, and toasted them in the oven at 375 degrees for about 7 minutes. And then I ran them through my nut grinder to grind them coarsely so that we could make pecan pie filling. And this is my nut grinder. And we just put the pecans in the top, and yes, I do it manually. I'm not fancy enough like my mother-in-law who has an electric one. I'm gonna turn this up just a little. I'm at like a 3.5 now. So I can hear the bubbles starting to form. I don't know, that sounds crazy. My husband looked at me like I was nuts when I said it, but I promise you I can. And pretty soon they're going to start appearing on the sides and perhaps in the middle. And as soon as they do, we're just going to stir in our pecans. Okay, I got bubbles forming on the outer edges. That's all I need. Turn it off. Stir just a little, and I'm going to add those pecans. So it's 2 2/3 half pecan halves that I then ground down coarsely. Then we're going to put this pan and all, I'm just going to put a lid on it, stick it in the refrigerator, and then tomorrow morning when we roll out our dough, our filling will be ready too. So our dough has been in the oven overnight. It is morning, and now we are ready to make kolaches. And I'm here with my trusty assistant, Elijah. Say hi.
Hi.
Elijah's favorite part of anything like this is to use my cutters to make the shapes. So today we're using a 2.5-inch circle to make our kolache shapes, and I'm going to dip that in a little bit of flour for you, bud. Okay? All right. Now I'm going to take half of my dough. Here's the whole thing. We're going to
get all the water out.
I'm going to mash it down, right? On a lightly floured surface. We're going to add a little bit more flour. And then we're going to roll it out. And we want it to be about a 1/2 inch thick. You think that's about a 1/2 inch?
It's 1/2 inch.
You think so? Let's get a little bit more. We got a couple places where we're not there, right?
Yeah, we need it flat.
Yeah.
Flat like a pancake.
Flat like a pancake. You're right. All right, bud. I think we're there. Okay.
Oh, those ones.
It's okay. Here.
Okay.
Cut for me. You gotta push hard. Remember? Good job. Oh, you didn't.
How?
You didn't get all the way through. push down, and then twist. Remember?
Mhm.
Okay, try again.
How do I always not get it through?
This is a little tougher than what you're used to. There you go. You're missing this side.
Oh.
There you go.
I put it out.
Right there.
I put it out the back.
No. Thank you. Okay, so we have 6 on our pan. We're gonna roll some more, but hold on. Just wait. I'm gonna show you what we're gonna do to these 6 first. So I'm gonna take my mini tart former, and you can use the back of a spoon dipped in flour, but I'm gonna use this. We're just gonna make a well, like that. A little hole in the center, right?
Mhm.
I'm gonna take a scoop. This is a half of a tablespoon. And I'm just gonna pour that in the center. So we're gonna do that to every one of them. Make them a little indentation. Hold on. And put the scoop in. And you have to do the indentation and then the scoop. You can't do all of the indentions and then scoop the pie filling in. Because of the elasticity of the dough, it'll bounce back and you won't have a well to put your filling in any longer. We're going to brush the tops of these with butter, and then we're going to set them aside for 30 minutes and let them rise before we bake them.
Can I do the last one?
Yeah, here you go.
Will you do that?
Uh-huh. And I just told y'all not to do that, and then I did it.
Here we go.
Good job. There you go.
Wait, you did 2 scoops.
I just did 1. Then we're going to take the butter, brush them with butter. So I have 2 tablespoons right here of melted butter.
Oh.
Just like this.
And the last one you're going to do is the one I made.
Yep, it is. You did that one. And then I have lids for my pans. If you have plastic wrap, that works great too. We're just gonna sit these in a warm, dry place for 30 minutes and let them rise. And we're gonna get back to the rest of them. So our kolaches have been chilling, well, rising for the last 30 minutes. Now we have to make the crumble that goes on top. I have 2 tablespoons of melted butter. I have a half a cup of sugar. I have a half a cup of flour and a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. I'm just gonna stir those together until it becomes this crumbly mixture. And then while the dough was rising again, I preheated the oven to 350 degrees. So we have crumble. I'm just going to take a little bit and put it on the top of each one. A very tiny amount. We're going to bake these in a 350 degree oven for about 20 minutes, but at the 10-minute mark, I'm just going to go in and rotate them so that we make sure they're cooked on all sides. And there we are. All of our pecan pie kolaches are out of the oven. So our last step is, I have a total of 4 tablespoons of melted butter. I've buttered the other ones, but this is my last tray. So all I'm going to do is put some butter right around just the dough part. And then we're ready to eat.